Look at that timing, 7 o'clock, and it looks like we are connected live to YouTube with whatever delays it is that runs. All right, I'm actually going to leave that on, but muted on the other side here. Hi, Kristen. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, can't complain. Can't complain. It was an early morning for me, a little bit early anyway. I had to be over to the James Island Park by 6 a.m. and they had another one of their sprint series triathlon this morning, and I volunteer for those things to cheer them on and make sure they're running in the right direction and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And,
Did you
and
get
it was
rain?
warm. What's that? Did you say did it rain?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't. We didn't have any rain where I was at the park. Um, but there's been all these little pop-ups all around us, so I didn't see any.
Hmm.
Probably would have liked it a little drizzling or something just because of how warm it was. Not
Yeah.
quite as warm as the one that I volunteered at 2 weeks ago, but definitely it was warm and muggy, and um, you could just. I think especially with some of the athletes, you could see that it was definitely, you know, taking its toll on them, the heat and the
Oh,
humidity.
I bet. I can't imagine.
No, no. I mean, and they start with a swim, a 600-yard swim. I think I'd want to maybe do that near the end and just sort of float along. It would be a race by that point for me.
Yeah, definitely not.
All right, I'm seeing 7:02. We usually get rolling about now. I am waiting to see if we have Janelle Ralph from Compassionate South Carolina come and join us. I do see someone logged in as an iPhone, but I'm not sure if that is her or someone else. Um, And let me just go back and check my messaging to see if she replied because she asked me to send her a reminder about an hour in advance, and I kind of forgot and didn't get a reminder until about a half hour in advance. So my bad. Okay, let me hide that because it's confusing me. And get back to the messenger and see if she sent me a message. All right, I do not see a response back, so let's give her a couple more minutes, see if she's logging on. As many of you know, parent of a special needs child, you can't always be where you're supposed to be at the exact moment, especially if your attention is drawn away by your child. Um, so we'll give her a few minutes in case it's something like that. In the meantime, I do want to talk about next. I don't know if it'll be next week or 2 weeks. I haven't quite scheduled it yet, but Kristen, who is our communications director at Lowcountry NORML, had suggested to me in a conversation the other day that we do one of our South Carolina cannabis conversations about what to do when you're stopped by law enforcement. So I thought about it a couple of minutes on who we might be able to get to come on in and talk to us about that. And an attorney up in Myrtle Beach, Johnny McCoy, who is sort of spearheading the Decriminalized Myrtle Beach initiative up there with trying to get their city council to add the referendum or add it to the ballot, um, the referendum to the ballot, or just pass it as an ordinance. Let city council vote on it. I don't know his progress on that, but he responded positively that he would be interested in doing one of these talks about what to do with if you're stopped by law enforcement. He's done them in the past, and that he's looking forward to it. So all I need to do is get back to him and get something scheduled up. Um, like I say, it may be next Sunday. It may be the following. I don't know yet. Um, I don't think it would be much further down the road than that one. I mean, if any of our listeners or followers tonight, oh, I forgot a little intro. If any of our listeners or viewers later on have watched the Pop Brothers at Law, it's probably going to be a little more detailed than that. Uh, but uh, but the Pop Brothers at Law do have a pretty good. Oh, look at that! I haven't seen her in forever. So with that, well, again, we're hopefully waiting to hear from Janelle. Let me just start our meeting like I do all of our meetings. Is that all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness. They are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis products, and we do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. Um, so again, we are hoping to have Janelle Ralph with some Compassionate South Carolina join us. Um, we're hoping she will talk about some efforts that they have been working on to increase the THC level in hemp products in South Carolina from the 0.03% to 1%. Um, I am going to real quick shoot her another message just to see if I can get a hold of her.
I don't understand. I want my picture come on.
Hey, there he is. Carrie, thank you so much for helping my Jackie boy. Now I can see him.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you, Carrie.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Jackie boy. How are you, man?
Good to see everybody. See Carrie. She just and Twitty Cat. All right, she got the cat. I'm on, y'all.
All right. Again, we're going to give her a couple of more minutes here. See if we can get her to join in. I just sent her another message, but again, sometimes that can be challenging. Again, I'll repeat for some of the new guests that have just joined in. We are looking to, or we had a suggestion by one of our members, Kristen, to see if we could do one of these cannabis conversations on what to do once stopped by law enforcement. So I reached out to attorney Johnny McCoy, who is up in Myrtle Beach area. He is spearheading the attempt to get Myrtle Beach City Council to put a decrim ordinance on their um, as a local ordinance. He said he did respond and said he'd be very happy to talk about that kind of stuff. That he's done it before, and that we just need to kind of get it scheduled, get it on the book. I'm hoping next Sunday or the following Sunday. And then we'll go from there. So with that in mind, I am open to any suggestions for guests or topics on what you might like us to discuss when we're talking about cannabis in South Carolina. I know sometimes those two things don't necessarily feel like they go together in some people's mind. Cannabis, South Carolina. In my mind, they should go together. So, so I say it often. I say it loud. I say it proud. Cannabis in South Carolina. I'm not getting a response from Janelle, so I'm assuming something may have popped up. I did message her yesterday, and again, she asked me for a reminder. But again, as we all know, sometimes life gets in the way. I will give her a few more minutes on here. Oh, excuse me. But actually, we do. I see that we have Jill Swing has joined us a little bit, and I don't know. Jill may have some insight or opinion on THC levels in hemp. Jill, I don't know if you heard me saying we're hoping that Janelle Ralph joins us to talk about. I've seen her posting about wanting to I guess, focus efforts on increasing the THC level on hemp to 1% from the 0.03%. I noticed somewhere in one of the comments you talked about the efficacy of all the cannabinoids as an entourage effect, and having that little bit extra THC can be beneficial. Do you have any insight or opinion on that kind of stuff for us? And I just want to note your mic is off. If you want to unmute yourself, or I can unmute you. There we go. Okay, you're unmuted. Are you with us?
Scott, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I just got in from my walk with my daughter, and I'm fixing dinner, so I have my video off. But yeah, I do have certainly some insight on that, or an opinion, based on conversations I've had with a lot of the hemp farmers in the state. And the original version of the hemp cultivation bill did allow farmers to keep their crops if they tested above 0.3%, as long as it was below 1% THC. And that was just to give those farmers a little buffer. If you have, this is a plant, it's very difficult to kind of control the levels even when you're growing from plumes. So there are variables as far as fertilizers and sunlight and a lot of other variables that impact that THC level in the cannabis plant. And so there was that buffer that was allowed up to 1% THC, and I believe mainly due to the requirements from the I guess it was, I don't know if that was the USDA that finally, I've kind of gotten out of land a little bit, so USDA that made the final determinations regulations regarding hemp within that last federal farm bill. And one of the lines of demarcation specific to hemp was that firm 0.3% THC. So now the regulations in South Carolina, in order for it to be a federally compliant program, that they've had to draw that line as well back to the 0.3% THC limit. I know that has created a challenge for a lot of our farmers, particularly those who are growing strains that are higher in CBD. Those high CBD strains do typically have a slightly elevated THC level, not again above the 1%, but a lot of them test around 0.6, 0.7. And that, most of our farmers in South Carolina are growing for CBD. So I've heard that a lot of the permit holders this year aren't even planting because the regulations have become so stringent, and there's a surplus of plant material in the state at this time. And so a lot of the permit holders have chosen to just sit a year out and, maybe come back next year and, see what happens on the federal level and see if there's any sort of wiggle room that they can get in legislation on the state level. I would imagine Janelle will be more familiar with what efforts are being made legislatively. But, as many of us know, that 0.3% was just an arbitrary number. It doesn't really have any significant meaning. And as far as defining hemp versus marijuana, that right now is our legal definition as far as the difference of one to the other. But we all know that it is one plant, and that, again, that number is arbitrary. And, if we want to have a viable and robust hemp program, not just in South Carolina, but across the country, then they're going to have to allow these farmers some wiggle room to be able to cultivate plants that can produce the type of plants that are going to yield, those higher CBD. That's what they're growing for. So anyway, that's just sort of my 2 cents. I don't know if if anybody's working. Janelle again would be probably the person who would know if there are efforts legislatively to make some changes. But yeah, it's definitely something that's a problem. hemp's been descheduled, but it's still defined as 0.3% THC or less. So, it's unfortunate because there's such a great opportunity for this plant for our farmers, and it's just sort of being taken away from them.
So what it's sort of sounding like to me is because of that hard line of the 0.03, and anything over that is then marijuana or medical marijuana, or however they want to deem it. Because I guess my follow-up question was going to be, do you see medical benefit in increasing to the 1%, even for product on the market? And I'm assuming you'd say, well, they would classify it differently. But do you, but I'm assuming that you see some medical benefit to increasing it.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of patients who have very small amounts of THC added to their regime, my daughter being one of them, see some increased benefit. Not being a medical professional in the field, I'm not maybe an expert on that issue, but I would think there would be some benefit. The challenge is when you get to individuals who are using CBD to treat their various ailments, and they're using a CBD that contains THC, are they putting their jobs at risk? I'm talking about first responders, police officers. My daughter's school, their resource officer, one of his good buddies was a big weightlifter. He was also a police officer, and he was using CBD that contained THC, tested positive, and lost his job on the police force. So for, individuals who have, randomized or required drug testing, when you get into CBD products that contain the THC, yes, you may see greater benefit and a better response for your body. However, if you're in a career or have a job where drug testing is required, you put yourself and your job at risk. So pros and cons, right?
Correct. That is kind of why we're fighting the way we are here in South Carolina, because of that. That little bit extra, it shows up in a metabolite test is most of what the tests are, and it's no indication of intoxication whatsoever or impairment whatsoever. But the law is the law, so it's more bureaucratic than medicinal. And that's why I think I briefly mentioned it last week's conversation when we were talking about cannabis refugees having to travel out of South Carolina and other states to get medicine for themselves, and not have to worry about the dangers of being caught with cannabis that they have to worry about here in South Carolina. And I don't want to go back on my ramble on that. I just think we've lost a lot of supporters because I think a lot of them felt it was just safer for them and they needed their medicine and left the state.
Yeah, and I think too, now that Florida's program has kind of gotten underway a little bit better, I see a lot of people from South Carolina just going down to Florida. It's not so very far if they've got family up here still.
True. I guess in the past couple of years, since it's become more available in Florida, and I haven't heard a whole lot about that, but that does make a lot of sense. That definitely makes a lot of sense that more people are just sort of hopping to Florida or something like that. But as you know, with all of our conversations here, we're trying to figure out ways where these people can have their medicine, and hopefully if they're found to be in possession of it here in South Carolina, they don't go to jail. So we'll keep working on that as we move forward. Jill, thank you very much for your input on this. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And speaking of, if you don't mind me just interjecting, one of the things that I like about the Compassionate Care Act that is somewhat unique is we do have a reciprocity clause. And there aren't a ton of states that have that, but patients who are legal registered patients in another state can come to South Carolina and are protected under the law. So say one of our friends, our cannabis refugees down in Florida wants to come, once our bill passes, of course, they want to come home and visit their family, they can, and they can do so, bring their medicine with them legally, and they're protected under the law. So that's,
Even if their condition isn't covered by South Carolina's law? I mean, that would be my only concern is being one of the most stringent, I turned you off a second, Jackie, sorry about that. One of the most stringent to qualify for compared to some of the other states. Could there possibly be issues with that aspect of it?
That is a great question. I'd have to go back and read exactly how it's written. They wouldn't be able to purchase from our dispensaries if it was a condition that wasn't qualified here. But our conditions list is pretty respectable. I mean, we don't have quote unquote chronic pain, but there is, any condition for which an opioid could be prescribed. So that's pretty broad. And then, we have a lot of the standard, conditions that most states have. I mean, we drew our list of conditions based on, scientific data as well as what other states were doing. So, personally, to me, I think it should be left between a doctor and their patient. I don't like the list. I don't think that 170 lawmakers up in Columbia are really qualified to make that determination of what patients' conditions should qualify and which conditions should not. I think it should be left up to a doctor. And I don't, every patient with cancer cannabis may not be the best course of treatment for them. Every patient with epilepsy, cannabis may not be the best treatment option for them. I mean, I just really think it, I just don't like this, okay, you check the box, you're good to go. I think that I find it an odd way to force physicians to practice medicine, but that's an argument for another day. And
well, that's very much like
they all
Virginia.
like the list. They all like the list.
Virginia NORML, I think, pushed really hard on their efforts with let doctors decide, and that was definitely a big advantage to them, and you see that they have moved forward, but and that's something that I think we
Louisiana just did that as well. If I'm not mistaken.
Did they as well? Okay, I think the let doctors decide is definitely a good a tag and campaign type effort, because I don't think it should be our legislators that are making the decisions. They make enough bad decisions for us. So, but yeah, thank you very much again, Joe. I do appreciate that, and I do like the let doctors decide aspect of it. And that may be something that even if we can pass it initially, it could be amended later on down the road in that respect.
That could be part of an expansion bill, sure. Unless we get, if we can rally a bunch of doctors behind that effort. I mean, the lawmakers keep saying, well, law enforcement's against it and the medical community's against it. We really need the medical community stepping up and saying what they want. And maybe the thing is they don't know. And so, I just encourage every patient out there, every time they go see their doctor, have a conversation with them about cannabis, about where they are intellectually about cannabis and cannabis as a treatment option for patients, because the more it's pushed from the patient's aspect, the more the doctors at least are going to be willing to start looking into it and doing research. And if that's done on the front end before the bill passes, then it's going to make it a lot easier for patients to get those doctor recommendations once the bill does pass.
Yes. Yeah. Well, as you know me, I've already talked to my doctors about it. I'm usually wearing a T-shirt or something, or a pin or something when I go in. Or actually, I have my new mask. I don't have it here today, but it has a cannabis leaf on it. So I kind of force the conversation with most of my doctors, uh, and I suggest you all do as well. Really, it is something. Don't be bashful. More and more of them are becoming educated on it. Um, some still are not, but I think the ones that really care about people are looking into this.
Yeah, and if I may allow a shameless plug, two conferences coming up at MUSC. They're both CME accredited. The first one is a half-day conference specific to CBD only. Um, Friday, October 2nd from 1 to 4. And that is, like I said, specific to CBD. And then the big annual medical cannabis update conference. We're working on finalizing the speakers now, and it will be once again a very star-studded lineup of faculty. That will be a full-day conference Friday, January 29th, 2021. And as of today, those will be in-person conferences with a televised option, I believe is how they're doing it.
Folks, in your chat window, I am going to drop the link for the conferences. It'll be a link to MUSC, and as you scroll down, you'll see both the full-day conference in January and the half-day conference in October. So I think I just have to hit enter. And there it is. If you'd like to copy and paste that and go check out those conferences. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I will probably post it here on the comments on our YouTube channel while it's playing. See if that works. Oh, check that out. Boy, it's like magic, all this technology. All right. Thank you very much for that, Jill. I appreciate that. Actually, I kind of forgot about the October one. I want to look into that. Thank you. Let me quick flip back over to Facebook here and see. I see three little dots kind of scrolling around, but I'm not seeing a response on my messenger. Hit refresh. All right. Well, we're coming up on 7:30. I don't know if Janelle's had a technical issue getting in with us tonight. And let me just look one more time at Messenger with her. I've just refreshed my system and it's spinning out of control. There we go. Okay. We will, I'll get back in touch with her. I'm assuming something came up tonight that again threw a wrench in the works, and we'll see if we can get her on. And we will be also coordinating that with trying to get on Peter, almost said Peter McCoy, not Peter McCoy, Johnny McCoy, attorney Johnny McCoy from up in Myrtle Beach. And we will do a what to do when stopped by a cannabis, an enforcement officer. Oh, there we go. That's, oh man, she wrote me a small book. Okay, I'll go back and revisit that and see what we can figure out. But we will definitely get a representative from her organization. If not her, from what I'm briefly seeing, she'll get one of her other folks to talk with us. We will get that organized again in the next week or two or three or whenever. We will get Attorney McCoy in here. We will hope that y'all make some suggestions on topics or guests that you'd like to see in. And I have some other kind of little ideas in the back of my head that I'll be working on that, so I don't want to kind of ramble on too much. Although the one thing I do want to kind of mention to you all, I am a little bit hopeful. I think I may have found a location. It hasn't been confirmed yet, to do an event next year in July. I'm targeting July 10th, 7/10. We're going to call it a Freedom Fest or something along like that. of course, with my spelling, Freedom, FRWEEDOM. But I'm looking for it to be pretty much a civil rights, civil liberties focused educational event in a way, with some music and good food and some fun. Um, we'll keep you posted on that. We're hoping that by that time we're out of isolation. I mean, come on, it's a year away. Uh, uh, if not, it'll. I mean, boy, just these events that I've been volunteering for lately, it's been interesting to see how they've scaled them back. I volunteered for a local event the last Wednesday that's normally about 500 people, and they scaled it back to about, I think, 150. And like just today, volunteered at a local triathlon, and I think they limited tickets on that to about 199 athletes that were able to participate. They they even social distanced them during the swim portion instead of everybody leave at once. They did a like 10-second release between people in their as they started the race. And again, those races generally, I think they limit ticket sales at around 2,000, but we usually had about 900 or so people coming to those. Uh, so they're quite a bit smaller, and there's no spectators, so it's only kind of some volunteers and the workers and the course monitors and things like that. Um, so yeah, watching those as things go forward, we're hoping to have that event next July. Again, we will be inviting a lot of nonprofits, 501c3s and 4s that are focused on community, whether it's civil rights, civil liberties, or whether it's other community activities and community focused uplift. Uh, uh, also, it was kind of funny because after the conversation we had about it, I happened to pick a little sugar baby watermelon out of my garden and was slicing it. And I'm thinking, boy, we need to have like a watermelon stand at this thing next year. Because I was walking around eating this watermelon. It was like, felt so summery. So now I've got the concept of some sort of like produce stand where you can get a slice of watermelon or some slices of apple or oranges or whatever, some fresh fruit kind of stand, along with the other vendors as well. But just to give it that real summery kind of feel. I don't know. We got to work on some details. So with that in mind, I will be looking for volunteers. I would love to find a an event coordinator, somebody who's maybe even put on a festival type thing before. We were gonna have to start looking for some sponsors and donors once we kind of get our basic plan sketched out and kind of get the idea of how big it's going to be or small or what our needs will be. Um, so my first step will be confirming a location, um, and we're going to kind of go from there. But yeah, any volunteers that can help us in just the organizational portion of that. Uh, Also, something that has been talked about locally at our normal meetings. We are restructuring. I may have even talked about this in our cannabis conversation. We're restructuring our local chapter. Apparently, National has put out some new bylaws after some issues with another one of their chapters, um, to keep all the chapters like accountable. So we'll be restructuring. We'll be sort of reaching out for anybody again who'd like to come on board as a board member and help us drive this organization and get some direction. Um, and of course, watching as the pandemic plays itself along until we decide how we're going to move forward with some of our petition collection, uh, and also getting out. I so miss getting out with our vendor booth and just talking to people about their opinions here in the state. And probably a big thing, especially with elections coming up. I did talk about it this past week at our Tuesday normal meeting, monthly normal meeting. We will be starting to hear a little bit more about Smoke the Vote, and that is basically normal scorecard for local politicians. If you have any input or insight, we'd love to hear it so that we can help grade these politicians on whether they are pro or con. Um, know I talked about it last week briefly. We did hear that Jamie Harrison recently came out pro. Um, I think he was even regulate like alcohol and tobacco, stop locking people up. Um, to me, that's the policy to follow. But anyway, if you have any good thoughts, quotes, comments by any of our candidates that are coming up in the November election, and I know locally we have a special election, I think, in August. Actually, we do in August because I'm working the polls that day. Um, and otherwise, I don't have a whole lot for you this week. That's the we're at 7:30, so we're about a half hour into it. Um, any comments or input from any of our guests tonight that you kind of have on the top of your head? I'm going to kind of put it out there to open up your mic and make a comment before I end this thing. So I'll give you a minute or two. I'll twiddle my thumbs and we'll kind of chill. I got Jackie moving his lips, so we're going to unmute him here. Okay, Jackie, can you unmute yourself? There, you got it.
I thought the federal law of CBD was 0.09 or 0.9.
I'm gonna take Jill's
Where
word
I
on
read,
it. I believe that they I knew the state was
yeah, the
when
state's
they first passed,
0.3.
and I no, the state was 0.9
Oh,
when
really?
they passed the hemp law. Yeah,
Oh.
yes, that I did know, and I didn't know when that kind of changed. So Jill's answer kind of fits for me. That would be
Yeah.
the
I
answer.
know I know the
And if
state's 0.3, but I was talking about the federal government as far as the whole
Yeah,
government.
the federal government in 2018 put it to 0.03, and that was
Again? Yeah,
a point. That was a hard line limit at that point. Correct, Jill?
Yeah,
I
there
got you.
there was a push for that federally, but it got dumped in conference committee. That was an amendment at 1%, the 1%.
Thank-
Okay.
Well-
And just for clarity, the CBD bill that was passed in 2014, the same year as the the first hemp bill, which was a hemp legalization bill, but not cultivation. It has so CBD only for
Oh, I think I lost you there, Jill.
Me too.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Oh, yep, okay.
Okay. So the CBD bill that I worked on, CBD for possession only for epilepsy, was and still is 0.9% THC. So like I have a doctor's letter that certifies that my daughter has intractable epilepsy and might benefit from the use of CBD. So I can legally possess up to 0.9% THC as long as what I have has at least 15% CBD. Find that product. It doesn't exist. You see what I'm saying? So that's why we're all still treating under hemp CBD. So I mean, it was just a lack of knowledge on our part early on, and we were kind of following what other states were doing and didn't realize that those numbers were really honestly not even workable. So yeah, so that could possibly be where that 0.9% came from. Or like I said, federally there was allow for up to 1%, but it got bumped in conference committee back down to the 0.3%. That was part of the compromise, I think.
Well, we'll have to wait till after elections, I'm assuming, till we see what's going to be coming up with the new legislature for South Carolina this year.
And I think, Scott, your point about reminding people that there is a special election, that's August 11th. And that's that was Peter McCoy. District 115. That was Peter McCoy's seat. Who, if y'all have followed, Peter McCoy has been our steadfast House primary bill sponsor. So it's a loss to us in a way. Obviously, terrific for him that he's going to be our U.S. attorney, but a loss for us that we've lost a big advocate in the House. My understanding, based on our polling and conversations that I've had, I have not spoken to both candidates, but both are supportive of medical cannabis, and that district encompasses a large part of James Island, Kiowa and Seabrook, and Scott, help me, Folly, right?
Yeah, includes Folly. I think that's even Mount Pleasant, and it goes up along that line a little further, but I'm not certain. Let me
No,
quick.
no,
It
you're
doesn't
thinking
go
of
further?
you're thinking of the Senate seat does, but the
Oh
House.
yeah, I'm thinking of the Senate seat that goes up further. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
that Senate seat goes all the way down to Ladies Island and Beaufort. But the House
Right.
seat is just James Island, Folly, Seabrook, and Kiowa, I believe. And so
think
that's
you're
August
right.
11th. So, you know, I mean, the good news is both candidates seem to be supportive, but I know that the Republican candidate is Peter McCoy's law partner. So I don't know if that makes an easy transition for us. You know, as advocates, you know, the challenge is you work so hard to build these relationships with all these lawmakers, and then they don't get reelected for whatever reason. You know, but I mean, you know, vote your heart, but as long as people just get out and vote, I think that's the important thing. August 11th. I think I didn't even realize that. And then there will be an election again for that seat. Is my understanding again in the general in November.
In November, I believe you're right.
So it's a very temporary situation for who, regardless of who gets voted in on the 11th.
Now, because I'm working the polls that day and I'm working a different district than the one I'm supposed to vote in, I have my application for my absentee vote sitting by the door, getting ready to go out to be mailed for both the August and the November elections, because I'll be working both of those.
Nice.
I think November is going to definitely be an interesting election to work the polls. We'll see how that plays out, my friends. Again, Jill, thank you very much for your input this evening. I didn't hear anybody else kind of raising their hand saying they have anything they must discuss tonight. And if you mustn't discuss it tonight, you can hold off until next Sunday, this same time, 7 p.m. every Sunday, for the South Carolina Cannabis Conversation. We'll see you right back here next week. I will announce somewhere along the line, probably this day of, I'll do a mass social media post on who we'll have as our speaker that night, because I'm not quite sure who we'll have in. And I appreciate each and every one of you for coming in and joining me tonight. And any of you that are watching this later on YouTube, again, thank you. Tell your friends to kind of hit the subscribe button, and I think it's like and share and all that other fun stuff that you're supposed to do with social media. And let's change some cannabis laws in South Carolina and federally. Have a good night, y'all. Thanks for being there.